Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll give the court today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you. And Bishop Jackson, do you have a copy of your statement?
Yes.
Okay.
Your Honor, and to the court. In June of 2015, I served as the ecumenical officer and chair of the Social Justice Commission of the African Methodist Episcopal Church. On June 17, 2015, at Mother Emanuel Church in Charleston, South Carolina, Dylan Roof, a white 21-year-old male, shot and killed 9 persons, including the pastor, Clemente Pinckney, who was also a state senator in South Carolina. Dylan Roof came under the guise of attending Bible study. Last November, a 16-year-old white female, not once, but twice came to Bethel AME Church, Gainesville, like Dylan Roof, under the guise of coming to attend Bible study. Also, like Dylan Roof, intended to kill those in attendance. Thank God that both times the church was not having Bible study. Thank God that no one was injured or killed. Thank God that classmates who she told of her scheme told school officials, who in turn reported it to local officials. And thank God that she was arrested. This incident was shocking, frightening, and alarming to the congregation of Bethel Gainesville. It made the edifice where they worshiped, studied, and fellowshiped not a refuge, but a target, a place of danger. In their minds, they can't help but wonder what could have happened to them and their loved ones. Bethel Church, in their minds, could have been another Mother Emanuel. But this incident not only affected Bethel Gainesville, but it has had impact across the country and around the world. After this incident was reported, I received calls, texts, and emails from around the world, from fellow AME bishops, pastors, and congregants who were alarmed that another attempt had been planned on an AME church, that another one of our churches and congregations had been targeted. Concerned that this may not have been an isolated incident, that more and more of our churches could be targeted. From leaders of other faith communions, Christian, Catholic, Jewish, Muslim, all who expressed hurt, but also solidarity with Bethel and with the connectional AME Church. This experience, while sensitive to the AME Church, is another alarm bell for the Black church. This experience has caused Black churches on Sunday mornings, at Bible studies, and other events to be sure that all of our doors are locked, that security is in place, that our buildings have to be protected, that those traveling through the parking lot need to be secure. Our churches, rather than being places of worship, study, and fellowship, have now become armed sanctuaries where we have to have security in order to feel safe. Because of Mother Emanuel, Bethel Gainesville, and the hostile and racist environment in which we live, there is no longer the assurance that when Blacks go to church, Jews go to the temple, or Muslims to the mosque, that they will be safe, or that loved ones will return safely home. We have had to have training sessions from law enforcement and others on what churches have to do to increase and ensure safety. Places of worship which extend an invitation, whosoever will, let them come, regardless of race, are now wary of all who come. We can't help but wonder about what the visitors' motives are. This is unfortunate, but also not Christian. This is the impact which has been had on Bethel, Gainesville, and the experience of so many black churches across the nation. It would be utterly irresponsible to underestimate the impact of this experience. In the current environment in which we live, this experience and others like it are still being planned, but thus far, fortunately, thwarted. The FBI and Homeland Security report that white supremacists pose the greatest threat to national security and that their numbers are increasing across the country. National leadership cannot remain in denial about the reality and danger of white supremacists and racism. While we are angered and frustrated by this incident, we do not hold hostility against this defendant. While she apparently hates or hated us, we do not hate her and do not wish to nullify her future and do not give up on her. It is our hope that the sentence given to her today will provide the opportunity for her to think, receive rehabilitation, learn and have a chance to change heart and attitude. Our fervent prayer is that this hope becomes reality, that the years tied to this sentence will serve her well, and that at the end she will be a better woman, free of hate, bigotry, and a desire to do evil. This will only occur if she wants it to happen, and she cannot do it alone. The feelings of hate that she currently has, she did not get all by herself. It may require her to change the company she's kept, but in the end, it will be up to her. The AME Church fully supports the recommended sentence before this court, including the ban prohibiting her from any of the more than 400 AME churches in the state of Georgia for 10 years, and the provisions that apply if she violates any part of the sentence. Finally, we wish her well and lift her in our prayers. Some might wonder why we are praying for her. It is because we believe in the power of prayer, that prayer not only changes things, but that it also changes people. We sincerely want her to change. Thank you.
Thank you. And then the state would have passed the riser rule also. Yeah, precious. Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you'll give the court today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you. You may be seated.
Honorable Holder, to the Bishop Reginald T. Jackson, the presiding prelay of the 6th Episcopal District, to all the elected officials, to the District Attorney Diaz, Attorney Boykins, to the prosecutor, defense attorneys, to the court staff. And also I must call, of course, Councilwoman Barbara Brooks, even in her absence, to Chief Jay Parrish, Chief of the Police for Hall County, the Superintendent of Hall County and those who may work there, and to persons present in this courtroom on this 22nd day of October 2020. First, I wish to thank you, Honorable Toller, for having me to present this impact statement in reference to the terrorist plot planned against Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church in Gainesville, Georgia. I am presenting this impact statement on behalf of the officers and members of Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church. No one could have predicted or told me that Friday, November 15, 2019, would end the way it did, with lasting effects to this day. The remembrance of that Friday, November 15, 2019, is forever etched on my mind, carved in my heart, and rests heavily in my soul. No one could imagine how Friday, November the 15th, 2019 started as an ordinary day where I worked half day and had scheduled 2 major appointments 2 weeks prior to that day. On that Friday, November 15, 2019, I recall that it was a rainy, dark, heavy, overcast, cloudy, and dreary day. But at approximately 4 p.m., while conducting business at the Murray Brother Funeral Home, the weather inside my microscopic world took a turn for the worse. The weather outside could not compare to the storm that just hit the shores of Bethel AME Church and my personal life. While speaking to the funeral director, Mr. Murray, about my funeral prearrangements, I recall the call from first Sergeant Kevin Holbrook and the second call from Chief Jay Parrish, informing me a terrorist act had been plotted against Bethel AME Church by a 16-year-old female, and asking me, had anything unusual happened at Bethel AME Church? My response was no. There has not been any occurrences at Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church. This question was key to them because from July to November 2019, I repeatedly asked Chief Parrish and Sergeant Holbrook to schedule an active shooting training class for the congregation because of the active shootings that had occurred throughout the United States of America. I immediately concluded my appointment, but did not finish my business at Murray Brothers Funeral Home. Contacted my chain of command, the Reverend Dr. Thomas L. Best, Senior, who is the presiding elder, Atlanta East District, and with his permission, I contacted Bishop Reginald T. Jackson and drove straight to Bethel AME Church, 900 Mill Street, Southeast Gainesville, Georgia. I asked Chief Parrish to have an off-duty police to meet me at the church. And I asked Brother Robert Clark, the steward pro tem of Bethel AME Church, without telling him why, to meet me at the church. I've waited from November 15, 2019, to this very moment. I have waited 343 days, which is converted to 11 months, 49 weeks, and 8 days, which is further broken down to 8,232 hours and 493,920 minutes, in hopes of standing before this court to tell those who will listen to this impact statement the irreversible harm and damage that the defendants plan and plot caused Bethel AME Church, the membership, the community, and the impact that it has and still have on this pastor. In 1943, Abraham Maslow, an American psychologist, developed the hierarchy of needs of a human being that is still relevant today because it addresses the 5 stages of human needs, which starting from the bottom of the pyramid to the top is as follows: physiological needs, safety needs, belongingness and love needs, esteem needs, self-actualization. Those 5 stages are further broken down into 3 major parts, which are as follows from the bottom to the top: basic, the physiological, and safety needs; psychological, belongingness and love needs, and esteem. Self-realization is just self-actualization. I am using the Maslow model and theory to address the impact, psychological damage, the destruction, the undisclosed cost, the evangelistic hindrance, and the time that it has been lost. And some of the things that will continue after the final verdict is reached and the final gavel sounded, that this trial is over, which was all caused by the defendant's act and plot to kill, maim, or mutilate the members of Bethel African Methodist Episcopal Church. The second step of Maslow theory, which is safety needs, has been shaken to the very core, and the Bethel church family are holding on to God's unchanging hand, trying to keep the faith, thanking God for watching over us both day and night, thanking God for all the angels that helped to reveal the plot, and we are collectively and boldly, with the help of the Almighty God, trying to reflect God's amazing grace. The impact to the church. Bethel AME Church is 118 years old, and the majority of the adults were born, baptized, and raised at that church. And the very thought that someone was plotting and had written plans to come inside the sacred walls where they once felt safe, comfortable, happy, without a thought, was all stripped away by then a 16-year-old female that wanted to reenact the dreadful evening on June 17, 2015 at Mother Emanuel AME Church, Charleston, South Carolina. Bethel AME Church attendance immediately and initially dropped off. And when I speak about the attendance, I'm speaking about the membership. Oh, we was full from media and other organizations, but I was looking for where's my people. As we know in churches, they had a certain row to sit on. Just the idea that the defendant had wished and desires to kill, hurt, maim, or mutilate the African Americans, which she has made clear in her writings. There is added stress of the membership focusing more on who is entering the door than what is being preached from the pulpit. There is more focusing on the sounds outside made during worship service than the songs of Zion being sung by the choir. Some of the older members express how hard it is for them to see the police roving inside and outside of their church while singing "Time is Filled with Swift Transition." Please know the police presence has added some comfort, but the comfort comes with a price. Bethel AME Church was impacted emotionally and spiritually, which keeps them on the edge whether someone is going to come in while we are in worship service. With all the added security and the surveillance, the faithful few still have apprehension, various levels of anxiety, which is a constant roller coaster of emotion. On November 19th, 2019, at approximately 12 o'clock noon, the information leaked to every major network, every form of social media, and therefore the worship service were impacted for a long period of time. Personal lives and privacy were altered. And to this day, when certain unrest news from other parts of the United States of America that is similar, members will call me and say, that could have been us. Of course, whenever we hear about any active shootings or acts of terror, our schools, our malls, in our retail stores, etc., it brings all fear, anguish, anger, and countless of nerve-wracking thoughts back to the forefronts of our spiritual and psychological being. There are members that wanted to know whether the defendant was released at the onset of the pandemic, the coronavirus 19, and since that time. Bethel AME Church membership is damaged because of what was planned and written in the defendant's journal. The congregation is still going through deep emotional feeling. Just to think that someone was planning to come into our church while attending scheduled meetings maybe, or Bible study, to kill, maim, or whatever they thought that they could do. This image and thought remains in their minds to this very day. There are not enough sermons that I can preach, and the choir cannot sing enough about faith, hope, and love to erase these images and fears. Bethel AME Church has been impacted financially as we responded to the terrorist act and plot by upgrading and installing surveillance, changing locks, hiring off-duty police from the city of Gainesville Police Department. The monies that has been used thus far has exceeded $8.5 thousand, which was earmarked for revamping the parking lot behind the church, all 3 bathrooms that needs a serious upgrade, along with the plumbing, which presently must be fixed because it's affecting our water bill. We have a yearly budgetary obligation to the Sixth Episcopal Church and to the Connectional Church that exceeds $7.7 thousand, and monthly operational expense that exceeds $2.5 thousand. Bethel is used to operating clear and free. Well, since my time there, not walking on tightrope to survive. But immediately it changed because we had to address security because it is a major human need. The Harper Smith House is an historical landmark that belongs to Bethel AME Church. It sits right, if you're looking at the Burger King, you'll look and see the house across the street. That is the Harper Smith House. It serves the community as an educational building for piano, drum, voice classes, computer classes, sewing, and room for organizations to gather for their meetings or other celebrations. There was a financial growth prior to the incident, which was going to assist the building with the driveway, which is deplorable, and other needs. But due to the incident, we immediately saw the impact financially. Therefore, Bethel AME Church is having to assist the Harper Smith House. We're having to, quote, rob Peter to pay Paul, to get surveillance installed, and the inside and outside this historical landmark of Gainesville, Georgia. The impact to the pastor. Where do I begin to describe the impact it has had and continue to this very moment to this person? Me, the soldier. Me, the veteran. Me, the ordained and seminary scholar. Me, the pastor. Where do I begin to speak about the impact that it has had on my life, my personal life, my job, which is very demanding, and my congregation. There's no dollar amount that I can set on these 343 days since Friday, November 15, 2019, at approximately 4 o'clock. I have looked at my family wall in my house and said loudly, like Jeremiah, "For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, says the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you a future and a hope." I asked myself, was I a target because an individual romanced the evil done by Dylan Roof to Mother Emanuel in Charleston, South Carolina? I asked myself, would Bethel AME Church being targeted by a young 16-year-old female that should have been focusing on completing homework assignments, preparing for the prom, preparing to graduate, being involved in extracurriculum to enhance her chance to go into college or vocational school? I asked myself, was I being a target because of my genetic makeup, first by God and then my parents, just being an African American woman? I asked myself, was Bethel AME Church being targeted because Mother Emanuel bears the same last name, A-M-E Church? Where do I begin to tell you the impact that it played upon me psychologically as I pondered over my military career in the United States Army, being responsible for soldiers under my charge? How proud I am to say that I never lost a soldier in death, and just the thought that the defendant plotted and planned to do an act against those whom I serve, guide, feed the Word of God, and oftentimes provide food for their physical body. I have looked at every award and certificate on my I Love You wall throughout my house. And I know that God and my parents did not plan for anyone to take something that they cannot replace, my life. I did not go to Iraq, the Sinai, Afghanistan, or some of the other places that we are or have been serving. But I have stood in harm's way during and after several battles. But to think that I'm standing in harm's way every time I enter the house of the Lord is kind of hard to wrap my mind around. I sing and have preached that we all are on the battlefield for our Lord. But the truth be told, we all want to feel a high level of security at church, at home, work, where we shop, where we conduct business. Where do I begin to tell you the impact that it has had on my job, which is demanding without any stress? The time lost for my job in order to conduct business relating to this case, vacation days taken to meet the media, flooded calls, attend scheduled active shooting training classes, attend the arraignment, take calls from or make calls to District Attorney Diaz, Attorney Boykins Edwards, coordinating with Chief Parrish for an off-duty police. And recently the media flooded my phone when House Bill 426, the hate crime bill, passed. A lot of time away from my job, which I cannot even calculate the man hours to give you an approximately figure of money associated. The Lord knows I can tell you the amount of hours I have spent because I have to field classes for call centers at AT&T. I woke up this morning at 3 to make sure that I had pushed through several of the applicants that's going to start in the next class. The roster is supposed to be due tomorrow. I have begged for mercy from them to let it be by Monday. In Book 2 of St. Augustine, He wrote a powerful paper titled On Free Choices of the Will, which is something that all of us possess and make the choice to do right or wrong in the sight of God, but also when no one is looking. We make choices that leads to consequences. And therefore, we choose to do the right thing or the wrong thing. We choose to do good or to do evil. Some people want me to consider the defendant's age and gender. But after a certain age, the defendant knows right from wrong. And the defendant has the same free will as you and I to do right or to do wrong, to do evil. But I point out that evil has no respect of age or gender. I served as a company commander and had soldiers ages 17 to 35. And when a soldier disobeyed any part of the uniform code of military justice, whether you were 17 or 35, whether you were a male or female, the code of military justice was implemented according to the crime. I know some of you are thinking this is not the military. I say to you that the Constitution of the United States of America, the laws of this nation, the laws of the state, the laws of the city must be upheld, or else there are consequences for our action and our disobedience. When I am approached by some people regarding the forgiveness, my response to them is there are consequences to every act that we do. Simply put by Paul, do not be deceived. God is not mocked. For whatever one sows, that will he also reap. You sow hate, you reap hate. But if you sow love, you reap love. Same people ask me about mercy. My response is one that's found in the book of Daniel. To the Lord our God belongs mercy and forgiveness. In closing, I wish to thank you, Honorable Kohler. I thank you, Bishop, to the prosecutor and the defense counsel, Attorney Diaz, Attorney Boykin, Edwards, court staff, members of Bethel AME Church, and all those who were in attendance. Even the friend that rode all the way here with me, Dr. Hill, for allowing me this opportunity to give this impact statement, because I've waited 343 days, 11 months, 49 weeks,